before we get into your career and your journey, can you introduce us a little bit about Sullivan Rutherford?
Yeah, so Sullivan is a winery that's been around for a little over 50 years now. The brand was started in 1972, but the estate where we currently are making wine and growing grapes was established in 1978. It was a gentleman named Jim Sullivan. James O'Neill Sullivan's how we refer to him. But he was originally from Los Angeles. He was a graphic designer. He worked for Disney. He did album covers, most notably for the Monkees. So he was kind of in that scene. But he enjoyed wine, enjoyed cooking. His wife was a chef, and he just enjoyed that lifestyle. In fact, one of his first or his wedding gift that he got was a grapevine that he planted in his backyard and trained and cultivated it. And really, I think that goes to show that, deep down he had a passion for wine and everything about it. And so it was really at the end of the 60s, early 70s, he started hearing about this place up in Northern California, Napa, that was starting to produce some pretty phenomenal wines, and that piqued his interest. So he ultimately went up to Napa. He purchased a 4-acre property just south of where the estate is now, off Manly Lane. And this is all while he was living in Los Angeles, and he would travel back and forth, sell some fruit, he would take some back, make a little bit of wine, and ultimately decided that that was the direction he wanted to go. And in his time going back and forth, he became friends with a gentleman named André Tchelistcheff, who at the time was the director of winemaking at Beaulieu Vineyards, or BV, which is just down the street from us right now. And you probably know who André Tchelistcheff is, but he really is considered the founder, not the founder, but the father of modern day winemaking in the Napa Valley. Russian descent, but he started his career in Bordeaux and then ultimately made his way out to Napa. And what was cool about that is at the time, everybody kind of deferred to Bordeaux and Bordeaux style, and it was low alcohol, high acid, lots of tannin, really age-worthy. Well, that's because that's what Bordeaux gives you from just a geographic location and the weather. Whereas Napa, things ripen, and he embraced that. And so he really promoted ripeness, texture, viscosity in the wines, and really shaped how winemakers today make wine. And so he was a valuable asset to Jim and helped Jim locate the estate that we're on today. It's 26 acres, right at the northern tip of the Rutherford Appellation on the valley floor. What's unique about where we're located is you think of the Napa Valley, you think of valley floor, you might think maybe a little bit more commodity driven in terms of soil profiles. It tends to have a little bit more fertility, which is great if you're growing, apples, or you have a pear orchard and you need a lot of fertility to produce a lot of fruit. But for wine, it's the opposite. You want the vines to struggle. You want low vigor, and that's exactly what they found. They found 26 acres in Rutherford with a high concentration of gravel and sand, and it is naturally produces low yields, which then allows me as a winemaker to come in and extract, build structure, build tannin, build depth and viscosity to the wine. And so Jim really identified a parcel that would allow him to do that. And in fact, if you go back and look at some of the older vintages on the cork, it says 1-800 Big Reds was the phone number. And I think that just indicative of Jim Sullivan and really what he was trying to achieve. And so he found that property and planted it. Back then, there was a mix: Cabernet, Merlot, a little bit of Cabernet Franc, some Chenin Blanc, Zinfandel, Chardonnay, kind of a hodgepodge, but it, at that time, people were still trying to figure out what grew best and where, and so that, is understandable. But then, as obviously as time went on, Merlot and Cabernet really stood out. In fact, his '89 Merlot made the Wine Spectator's Top 100. It was the first time in Napa Valley Merlot had made that list, so it really put Sullivan on the map as a Merlot producer. And then in 2018, the Sullivans decided to sell, and they sold to a small family group out of Mexico City, led by our managing general partner. We call him JP, but his name is Juan Pablo Torres Padilla. And when he first visited Sullivan, he, I think, saw everything that Jim saw. He tasted the wines. In his mind, they were amazing. They reminded him of Bordeaux, where he has spent a lot of time. And really what stood out to him was the Merlot. And coming to Napa in 2018, Cab is king. Cab rules Napa. Everybody coming to Napa is planting Cabernet, or they're ripping stuff out to plant more Cabernet. And so JP really saw the historical kind of value that Jim had kind of set up, and wanted to take that to the next level. So we have been, as a team, redeveloping the vineyards in Rutherford to support more Merlot. We've bought other vineyard sites that we've planted specifically for Merlot, and we are really trying to make Sullivan, and Sullivan more specifically J.O. Sullivan Founders Reserve Merlot, synonymous with world-class Merlot, and that is where we're at today.
Sullivan Rutherford is, neighbors with a lot of prodigious names.
Sure.
Being in Rutherford, probably one of the most important AVAs within Napa Valley.
Yeah.
How does, to you, what makes Sullivan Rutherford different, unique, better, if you want?
Yeah.
What makes you different from your neighbors?
I think it starts with the site. If you don't have a site, I can be the best winemaker in the world, and but if I don't have high quality fruit, there's only so much I can do. The quality is truly in the grape, and so I think what sets us apart is the fact that we have this unique site that has a lot of gravel and sand, very well drained. It's low vigor, so it forces the vines to really struggle and produce low yields. And why is that important? Because low yields means that the berries are smaller. And everything that makes red wine great comes from the skins. And when you have smaller berries, you have a higher skin to juice ratio. So then as a winemaker, when I'm fermenting and extracting and doing everything I do in the cellar, I'm able to pull more out in a smaller amount of juice, therefore concentrating it. And I think the site allows me to do that. It allows the wines to be what they are, and I think that is, a unique or competitive advantage relative to some of my neighbors who all do a great job. But I think Sullivan is unique in the sense that we get naturally low yields from the site that allows me to produce wines that are structured and age worthy. And what I think is pretty cool is Rutherford, we were talking about earlier, is known for having more of that earthy, dusty, minerality character, and that's what makes Rutherford unique. And I think the site specific to Sullivan brings that out in spades. And my goal is to make the most Rutherford Cabernet and the most Rutherford Merlot in Rutherford, and that's my goal.
Can you tell us a little bit about the different wines that Sullivan Rutherford produces?
Yeah, so obviously we're in Napa, so we produce Cabernet Sauvignon, and we'll always do that. And of course, it's great. The Cabernet is great. It's some of my favorite wine. But then Merlot is a close second in terms of overall planting and overall attention given, and everything we're trying to do as a company now is kind of shifted from Cabernet into the Merlot realm, and we're really focused on elevating not only the Cabernet that we make, but Cabernet and Napa as a whole, and really trying to get it on the global stage and to compete with some of the best regions in the world. And so those are really the two most widely planted varieties that we have. We do have a little bit of Cabernet Franc, a small amount of Chardonnay, a little bit of Petit Verdot, but really it's Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon.
Everyone thinks Napa Valley, we think Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah.
And to put a significant amount of acreage space to be planted from Cabernet Sauvignon to Merlot.
Yeah.
Some people call it gutsy.
Yeah, from a business perspective today, it's a gutsy move for sure.
What was that drive? What is that sort of rationale or just what is the reason behind that?
A couple, I think. I think obviously Cabernet does very well in Napa. That's why everybody plants it. That's it does well, and we all understand that. But so do other grape varieties. And unfortunately, because Cabernet does so well, that's what people planted, and on their best sites, that's what got planted. Unfortunately, on sites maybe that are less conducive to structure and density and all the things that we like in great Cabernet, everything else got planted on that, including Merlot. So I think unfortunately Merlot took a backseat to Cabernet Sauvignon. We're talking 40 years ago when Cabernet really started becoming popular. And as I was mentioning earlier about, I could be the greatest winemaker, but if the fruit isn't of quality, it's going to be hard to produce world-class wines. And unfortunately, Merlot fell into that category. You can make decent Merlot, and the great thing about Merlot is it can be planted almost anywhere, and it'll almost always ripened because it's an earlier ripener variety, so it's very versatile in that sense. It tends to have less tannin, so it's softer, and so I think people were like, okay, well, if we're going to focus on Cabernet, and sometimes Cab can get too big, so we'll use this Merlot over here to tone things down and make, maybe a lower price point wine, an entry level, something that can be consumed younger, and that's kind of how people rolled with it. But the reality is in the world of wine, Merlot is some of the most expensive, some of the most sought after wines around the world, and if given the right opportunity, i.e. the land, you plant it on the right soil, you have the right vineyard management and farming practices, you have the right winemaking to go along with it, like you can produce phenomenal wine. And I think JP came in, and he loves Cabernet, but saw an opportunity. There is a rich history of Merlot already established at Sullivan, and I think we can take it to the next level. And so he has invested time, energy, resources in order to achieve that. And we can say that we're the best, or we're trying to be the best at producing world-class Merlot. But if you're not doing things that show people that you're actually serious about it, then it doesn't really matter. And so I think investing in vineyards, investing in our vineyard management team, investing in a new winery to cultivate the best Merlot in Napa, or one of the best Merlots, and ultimately, a Merlot that equals or rivals some of the best in the world. I mean, that is our ultimate goal, and we're doing all the things to ensure that we can achieve that.